welcome back to Maze of Minds, podcast number 2. Yeah, so I'd just like to say this podcast was sponsored by Jackson's Motors. Local guy in Dawlish runs a garage, so I'd just like to say a big thank you to him for sponsoring this pod. Means a lot. And also thanks to you guys that sort of paid money into the GoFundMe. We set up a GoFundMe to try and help support this podcast, so I'd like to thank all of you that donated. We really appreciate that. So in today's pod, we have a special guest and friend of ours, Mike. He's
Hi.
he's going to come on and talk a bit about his addiction and his recovery process of what he went through. Yeah, so further ado, we'll get into it and let's kick it off with addiction, shall we, boys?
Yeah, it's great to be back here, and good to have you here, mate.
Cheers, lads. I just wanted to say I watched your last podcast, and it was really good, and I'm sure it helped a lot of people, and thanks for inviting me on the show.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, your journey's been like, I've followed it on Facebook, like your walks and that. I mean, it's just been an inspiration. I know a lot of people like have followed it, and that's one of the reasons we want to get you on here to share your story and that, you know.
Tell us how it started, how this journey started for you. Was it early stages, or was it later on in life, or?
The first time I had problems with my kind of mental health, I guess, I was at secondary school, and I was happy, I was confident, and I went in. I remember this certain week, and I went in, and it was almost like someone had just completely switched me off, and I couldn't be that person that I was the week before. Like I was in a shell, in a kind of bubble, and I couldn't be that confident person, and I couldn't understand kind of why this happened. So I guess for me, this was kind of around the times of, youngsters were getting into drinking at the weekend. And for instance, if I had a really low week, I would find that I needed to be that confident person that I'm used to. So on the Friday, I would take to alcohol to bring me back to that confident person. But of course, the next day you're back to square one, and sometimes like you would have weeks where you're up here, like high on life, and weeks where you're kind of at the bottom. But I always found that like a brief like encounter with alcohol could bring you back, and that was my first kind of relationship with alcohol.
We said on the last pod, didn't we, that self-medicating and alcohol can be a good stress reliever. It can be fun. You can go out and you can have fun with your friends at the pub and have a few beers, watch the football or whatever you want to do, play some pool. But then that sort of goes on to, well, you liking that person being drunk, and then you continue doing that because you want to be a certain person, and that's when it becomes an issue. So you found yourself drinking a lot more than you should be drinking, and you come reliant on alcohol. Were you waking up and thinking, oh, I need a drink, or?
No, like at first, like for me, alcohol has always been like a mental kind of addiction rather than a physical addiction. Like the physical addiction for me came in later years with other substances, mainly sleeping tablets and prescription drugs, basically. And that was when I realised what a physical addiction was. But with the alcohol and, I guess, recreational party drugs were used basically on a weekend. Granted, sometimes I never knew when to stop, and it would go on a lot longer than what it should. But once I got myself back to work on the Monday, sometimes the Tuesday, like I always came back from that, you know. Yeah. But the physical was to come in later life.
I think we can all relate to that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
About obviously going out and, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that, especially with the alcohol. especially like I've said before I got diagnosed with my ADHD and was on my meds, I used to use alcohol as I was self-medicating. Like I couldn't go to sleep if I hadn't had a couple of beers like that. And like if you're doing that sort of every day, that's alcoholism, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and like you'd get to a point where the weekend your couple of beers would turn into like 8 or more, and like it was just crazy, really ridiculous. But,
Yeah.
you know,
And I was the same in the sense of, you know, I was always shyer, and then I was quite sensitive towards situations. And I said in the last podcast, like being a highly sensitive gent. But it was at that time when I wasn't confident in myself that actually alcohol would help with making me feel confident and, you know, fitting in and being myself or whatever else, like numbing the mind so I could just have a laugh or whatever, not be conscious of myself. So, you know.
And that's the thing. It sort of opens the door to other things then as well, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
It's like that thing where it works for so long and then it's like, oh, okay, what else can help?
Yeah. Like I think alcohol was always a gateway, like you say, into other stuff.
Accepted, isn't it?
Yeah.
In society.
That's
But in my personal kind of opinion, like say the pub's shutting down at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I always found I wanted to prolong the party because I didn't come back. But I didn't want to come back to the normality. It was almost like you were scared, so you kept going and you went back to someone's house, etc. And it went on to the early hours. Sometimes, well, quite often actually. But
that's good fun.
You know,
but this is it. I think that's what's important as well is realizing that, you know, you can do those things. You know, it's not. I think it's important to be able to go out with your friends and just let yourself loose and have your house parties. And I remember we used to go, you know, school times, the weekends, go down the beach, and we used to all get levered at the beach, build a big fire, and you know, party around the fire and stuff and whatever, and then, you know, go home and it was all right. We'll go to the soup people, like, and get your free soup and hot chocolate and that, like, you know. So I think it is important that, you know, don't restrict yourself from doing that. But I think it's also important that if you find that it is causing issues, then it is maybe worth stepping back from that and looking and thinking, well, hold on a minute, this alcohol, it's not doing what I want it to do anymore. Gateway's open, let's try something else. But it is still super important to go out and still enjoy yourself, and don't be scared about doing that because you need that release.
I think for me, I kind of got to a period in life where the partying at the weekend was then outweighing the good times throughout the week. It was making it, like, if you've got a fragile mind to start with and you're going to be putting drink and drugs inside of you, then you're only going to add to your mental health problems and probably create new problems within your head that you may or may have not had before. It definitely took its toll on my mind, for sure.
Okay, so after that process, so you were at school, you noticed something wasn't quite up, and sort of alcohol and have you. And so when you sort of left school, what was what's the first sort of drug you turned to help, or you got addicted to, you'd say?
It's hard to remember, but I remember coming back from New Zealand, and I was still partying all the time. So I needed to do something about this. So I basically went off alcohol for almost 3 years. It was close to 3 years, where at work I felt amazing, you know, I felt really good. But when I got home in the evenings, this was where it was affecting me. I couldn't relax the same as you say, Pablo. And I'd heard about diazepam, which was a sleeping tablet. So I thought, okay, if I do half a tablet a night, this is not going to affect me. But me being me, and if I like something, I'll do more and more. And within a couple of months, I was taking them before work, during work, after work, up to 10 to 15 tablets a day.
Wow. Yeah.
And then once the it kind of, the buzz wasn't the same anymore. As you first started taking it, I ended up taking like painkillers on top, and I got myself into a pretty dark place. And I realised I was physically addicted when I took my last of what I had, and I was expecting to get more in the evening, but I couldn't get my hands on any, and my body like completely went into shutdown. And the next morning I remember getting my hands on some, literally hand in the bag, and it was, I came back. But this was when I knew that I was like physically addicted to drugs, and I needed help, basically.
Yeah. So you had those withdrawals from not having them.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place to be in.
Yeah, and it's almost like I couldn't at that time see a way out. I was so heavily involved with all these substances. You can't see a way out, and like I think to myself now, had I have carried on down that road, I perhaps might not be here sat talking with you guys today, you know. So I'm happy to be sit here now, back in business, you know.
We need the content. So.
It's a sad thing though, because like a lot of people sort of go down that path, you know, where they're like self-medicating, and this is like why I reiterate to you guys the importance of, like, for me, having a diagnosis and having the proper medication, because that's obviously helped me mentally and helped me get my life back on track, to be honest, because God knows where I'd be if I was in the pub, like, doing what I was doing, you know. It's, you know, I don't even think it's about growing up either. It's about having a focus and, like, you know, you've got a purpose, ain't you?
Yeah.
Because when you're on that road, you haven't really got a purpose, have you?
No.
You know?
No.
You're lost, basically. And then, like, going on to that, it's like some of the things you've done, like, I'm just upping and going. I'm going to walk to, you know, it's fair play to you.
I mean, walking, for me, like, the Spanish is basically a pilgrimage for the people who don't know. But in the early years, so I started when I was about 24, and you walk from France all the way across Spain. It's around 500 miles. But in the first instance, I used to do it as a basic recovery. You know, if things were getting too much at home, you know, whether it be your mental health or whether it be drink or drug related, I would go to France and I would walk. And within 2 to 3 days, you felt yourself coming back. You were that positive person again, and by the end, you're just back. You know, you're full of life. I can't describe how it feels, basically.
Yeah, and what an experience as well, like seeing all them different places.
Yeah, it's,
you know, meeting all them different people.
Yeah,
and that must have took toll on your body as well. Bet you were blistered up.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly takes its toll on the feet for sure. And yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of the time you got to rough it. You know, you don't smell too fresh. You know, sometimes the hostels can be shut. You don't get a bed. You know, you keep outside. You got to do what you got to do. You know, but,
you know, but you was on a mission. You had a plan.
Yeah,
you know, and fair play to you. Every time you've gone and done it, like, I'm just doing it. Like, you've not done it half-hearted. You've been fully committed, haven't you?
Yeah. Like, for me, in my head, if I start it, then I have to finish. Otherwise, I've let myself down, and perhaps other people who maybe follow. And I know it's about me, but I can't help my full process sometimes.
That's a great push, though, isn't it?
It is. It helps, you know, doing it for yourself, but also, you know, having other people encourage you and thinking about other people. I mean, that's compassion, where you've got that, where you're like, I want to do this, but also I don't want to let others down. I want to, you know, inspire people, which is what you've done.
But I also think, like, the people that were watching and supporting, you know, which I was very grateful for, also pushes you along as well. You know, because you do get times when you're drained, you've got nothing left.
I think on your last one you were like, I think I'm gonna throw the towel in.
Yeah.
I remember messaging you a few
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, I remember
Come
that.
on, mate.
Yeah.
I remember you
Let's
saying, like, I'm
keep
going to get a
going.
ticket and I'm just going to go. I think the weather was pants at the time. I think it was a lot of rain
Yeah.
and a lot of.
And to be honest, I didn't have the right gear either.
T-shirt and shorts. Like.
Flops.
You'd think I'd be prepared by now. But,
Yeah,
nah,
okay.
nah.
Sometimes got to learn that way.
But for the next one, I'm going to be prepared.
Fair play. But
No.
that's what it's about, though. And like that's like a coping mechanism in its own, isn't it?
It's almost become like a healthy addiction for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
now. Like if I work in the day, if I
Yeah.
come home, I have even just a little wander up the hills, 3
Yeah.
miles, then I've had my fix. You know?
Yeah, because
No.
we all need that. Like mine is climbing, so it's like I need that vice. I know if I don't get it, and like I say, it used to be alcohol, drugs, whatever, but now it's like having that thing. It ignites you, doesn't it? You kind of like you have your thing, and you're like, yeah, this really invigorates me.
It's
Keeping the
definitely good to
connection
have something
going.
like that in it. It's
Yeah.
especially in this world at the moment. Everything's so fast paced, isn't it? It's like you get up, same routines. You go to work, you come home, you see the kids, you go
It's
to
like
bed.
getting your dopamine fix.
Well, this is it, and you've got to find.
That's-
And obviously, you found climbing, you found walking. It's I think it's great. I tend to eat.
yeah, no,
I think
for me, it's like the gym as well. The gym helps
Yeah.
me. I'm probably not doing it as much as I want to do at the minute.
Yeah.
It's a busy life, but
Well,
you
that's
can
it,
gotta
but
have a
you
balance,
still-
and that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes
that's it.
getting
Yeah.
a balance in life, isn't it? So we're all busy.
Yeah.
Especially you got kids as well.
Mm.
It's just it's all fun and games.
So going back to like your addiction, what was the turning point for you that you decided to go on this recovery? Was it advised by doctors, or was it something that you decided yourself, or was it cold turkey? Did you like, that's it, no alcohol, no drugs, boom, I'm done?
So, yeah, basically at the time, I remember a good friend of mine, basically, he marched me to the doctors. And
Okay.
we sat down together with the
Mhm.
doctors. He did most of the talking because by this point, I couldn't really say a lot, But the doctor basically said, on this medication, it's basically a benzocaine, a sleeping tablet. He says you cannot come off it cold turkey, whatever you do, because it could potentially kill you.
Yeah.
Or, So he said, whatever you're on, I don't care where you get them from. Obviously, he couldn't prescribe them.
No.
But he says you drop half a tablet every week until you're down to nothing. So I was on a very high dose.
So half a tablet, half a tablet a week,
A
or
week.
a day?
A week.
Wow.
A week.
Okay.
So your body has to very slowly come off it. And at the time, I was quite happy to hear the doctor say that because, obviously, when you're a kind of addict, you want to keep taking your drugs. But in the back of my head, I knew that I had to get off it. So this is what I started doing. And in that time, I don't know how I did it, but I ended up meeting a girl and I moved away from the area I was in. So I had no access to the drugs anymore. So I had to start weaning myself off it. And it took a long time, as you can imagine, from the dose I was on. But by the time I got down, I remember looking at the last tablet in the bag and my body was so, it had come off such a high dose that I knew that I didn't need this tablet anymore. And I knew that I'd cracked it. And I remember going into the kitchen, opening up the bin and chucking it. And that's when
Yeah.
I was clean off prescription drugs, basically.
Wow. Get on.
And I've never looked back.
That's great.
No, fair.
I mean, that's you took big steps for that as well. Like you said, you moved away, and currently where you reside now, it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's a countryside, and
Yeah.
I've seen videos and I've seen where you live, and it's beautiful. Like it's lovely where you live. You're so lucky, but that's something that you've had to push yourself through to be able to get to where you are. which I commend you for. That's incredible. It's I mean, lucky for you that, say lucky, but I'd never change my situation. But you are currently single, ladies. If you're watching, he's a nice guy. Or men, you might find. But obviously, I'm married, got children, and it'd be a lot harder for me to be able to, up sticks and move and do all that sort of stuff. So, I commend you for that, because obviously, like you were saying as well, where you are, social aspect as well. You haven't really got that social aspect.
Yeah, I think basically a friend of mine, I was laying bricks with him, and obviously us brickies, we like a chat, and he said, look,
that's why nothing gets built.
He basically said he's got this static home in the middle of nowhere. It will be probably good for you, to get yourself out of the temptation, basically. And you know what? I went home that evening and I said, right, I'm going to do this. Like, my parents thought I was mad. I said, yeah, I'm going to rent the flat and move into a static home. And they were like, no, that's mad. But I did it, and it was probably one of the best choices I've ever made, to be fair.
Fair play.
Yeah, it does.
Sounds like you've had some good people around you. Like, encourage, with going to the doctors, that first place. I mean,
and that's what you need. Some people aren't lucky to have that, to be honest.
No, definitely.
And this is where this is so important. With you setting up the group and then the podcast and everything else and the conversations, is because of like being able to have that support, being able to have that conversation for people that don't have it, not everyone does. So having that opportunity to go, hear a story and how much it helps to go somewhere, whether it's like, oh, I'm addicted or not, or whether it's just thoughts in your head or something, just being able to go, look, I'm not sure about this or how I feel, but, I've had this and I feel a bit unsafe and I don't know which way to go. Just being able to have those conversations, I think, is important.
Yeah, most definitely. It's almost like some, like you say, if people have got nowhere to go, like you always need to talk to someone. I find, even if it's just briefly, and even that small chat can bring you out of somewhere. So I don't know whether there's like helplines.
Yeah, so there is one that I think is great. Well, I've heard really good things about. It's called TalkWorks.
Okay.
So it's basically like NHS therapist service, and it's free, and you can just call the number up. And there's always someone there to talk to. I think they're open Monday to Friday, 9 till 5.
Yeah, that's where they do CBT, isn't it?
Yeah. So they do. And you can also go and see them. So it's not, it can be just over the phone. Some people prefer that. A lot of people that I know have done it just over the phone, but they found it very helpful. These therapists are very qualified. They know what they're talking about. And you can open up to them and you can say whatever you like, and there's no judgment. But yeah, so if you are looking for someone to talk to and you don't have anybody to talk to, you've got us, Maze of Minds, drop us a message and we'll help you and point you in the right direction. But yeah, so TalkWorks, it's a really good thing. I got the number. It is only 18 plus, though, unfortunately. So you have to be 18 or over. But the number for that is 0300 555 3344. So that's the number for that. But yeah, very good for someone to talk to, and it's free. And we all like things that are free.
Yeah.
Sure. So we've got to the part, where you've moved away to start your recovery. You reduce your medication on doctor's orders. So were you on any other drugs other than prescription drugs at this time? Or was it only the prescription drugs that you needed to stop?
Yeah, it was basically the sleeping tablets and the prescription drugs were on top. But basically, I was always looking for something to make you feel more calm.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously everything gets weaker because your body gets more used to it. And I'd also read it basically at the time that a drug called ketamine can make you feel very calm.
Yeah.
Basically, it can help with depression as well if microdosing. So, of course, I ended up with some ketamine. But myself, being myself turned into another problem, basically. I wouldn't say the ketamine turned into a physical addiction, but it definitely caused some problems for my body. You know, it made me very ill, and I put a stop to that quickly because I had enough problems with the sleeping pills to deal with. You know,
And none of us are getting younger.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Quite a roller coaster by the sound.
So that period of my life, I can't honestly tell you how long that went on for, but I know I went down to about 11.5 stone. I look back at pictures, like I've got a grey face.
Wow.
Like I looked ill. I couldn't talk. I talked very slow, and my parents, my friends were saying, "You're not you."
Yeah.
But in your head, because you feel better because you're relaxed from whatever you're taking, you think you're okay.
Yeah.
But looking back, like I was far from it. Like I was a proper addict, basically.
It's good realising that, though, isn't it? It's a tick off the list. You know, if you don't realise it, then that's when it's still an issue. But it's good to know that when
if you hadn't have done nothing, you might not be here now. You know?
Yeah, potentially. You never know how far down the line you're going to go, what comes after ketamine, you know, you don't know. And I was happy to get out when I did.
Yeah.
You guys can also agree with, if you've been at the very bottom of the bottom, for whatever your reason, whether it be drugs or mental health, when you're back at the top, then it feels good.
Yeah.
Like you have
100%.
to appreciate the bottom to know what the top
100%.
feels like.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Yeah.
And that is the saddest thing with mental health. Like sometimes you do need to hit rock bottom to sort of understand it.
Yeah.
You know?
And start that recovery process.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never want to go through those things, but
No.
like you say, you know, well, that's why it was so important to us. We all agreed straight away.
100%. Like
Having you on.
That was like when I hit rock bottom, like I didn't want to go there again. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Oh, I say that every day. Yeah.
Since that day, it's just been moving forward, educating myself as much as possible.
Yeah.
You know, to give myself the best balance I can, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like why we're all here doing this, isn't it? Sharing it.
And like you say, with money, with any addiction, basically, it's like you say, you hit a low point and you're like, okay, and you either get someone that helps you or realize yourself, or something happens that brings you out of it. And then it's creating those tools or things that really do help you to be able to go, I'm not going to go back to that place.
Yeah.
Or even if I do,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what's happened? Like, why am I going this way? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the important thing about having understanding as well. It's like, obviously, if you can feel yourself slipping, you can sort of like grab yourself and pull yourself out, you know. But if you haven't got that understanding, you ain't going to recognize it, are you?
No.
So you can end up slipping deeper again, and before you know it, and that's not what you want to do, is it? And like I say, that's the importance of like this group and this podcast, like sharing our stories to help people.
Yeah, I think the recovery part, like we touched on it earlier, your recovery is amazing. I followed it on Facebook like we all did, and I think it was just, you know, I'd sweat just reading it. You know, it's like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like,
You were doing, Chris.
I see a picture. You've seen him in his sliders. He's pretty fit. It was, insane. Like I would sit and you'd be there with your backpack on and you'd be like, right, I've got 500 miles to walk. And I'm thinking, wow, like, you know, you drive sort of 200 miles in your car and you're knackered. Like 500 miles is
That's
just,
what I mean.
but the photos were just amazing. And I enjoyed following that journey of yours. And on days where I'd feel a little bit, you know, a little crap or whatever, I'd come on, I'd be like, oh, you know, you've updated, I'd read on there, and it would just give me that little boost, like, that's brilliant. He's done such a great job. And I'd write on there, like, you know, keep going, graft him, keep rolling, you know, and then I felt good because I was encouraging you to keep going, and then I'd see you post again. You've got to your next milestone and your next. I just think it's incredible, absolutely incredible. But I think it'd also be good to maybe get some of that journey on our Maze of Minds Facebook page, just so people can relate to that. And maybe some of your posts that you've done previous, we can go through the ones that you'd like to show, and we can post that so people can go to our Facebook page and look at that journey and look at the photos and see the recovery process and what you've done to recover.
So I have to thank my mum, really.
Yeah.
So basically, she did it when she was around 50.
Mm.
And she basically said to me, look, Mike, there's this walk that you've got to do sometime in your life. And I thought, you know, whatever. In my 20s, I didn't want to walk. Do you know what I mean? I just wanted to party. But it was, I ended up in the south of France. Basically, I had this mad idea to go and pick grapes down there. And anyway, I didn't end up picking any grapes. I just ended up in a bar most of the time. And I thought, well, I can't do this. So I rang my mum and I said, look, where does this walk start? She told me. I basically turned up, pair of Nike Airs, bag of clothes, and off I went. 500 miles later, I finished. And I loved it. And it's been a thing that I've always done now.
Yeah.
But recently, because of my circumstances, living where I live, I have more time to travel. So I've kind of been doing it a lot more now. But now I'm doing it because I feel good and I enjoy doing it rather than a recovery process.
Yes, it's gone from a thing to help you recover to something that you enjoy and you just do now because you really enjoy it.
Yeah, basically.
Which is great, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
It's my feel good factor. If I want to feel good, then I'll go and do it, and it, not only mentally but physically as well. You know, if you walk that far, it's gonna, you're gonna lose weight. You know,
but like, what an achievement though! Like, and your dedication at doing that. You know, like it's like you got a hyper focus. Like, that's it. I'm committed to that task. Nothing else matters. And that's a good thing to have, a good quality to have.
Yeah, thanks.
You know?
And you met some amazing people on the way as well, didn't you? So did you find other people in the same position as you in recovery, or?
I found everyone who walks, obviously the pilgrimage way, 99% of people were doing it because something had happened in their lives, perhaps grieving or, perhaps a marriage breakup or just something along those lines. Everyone was walking to better themselves, and people are so open on it.
And that just shows the importance of it, really. Like, some people could just be like, I'm just going to go on a bender, turn to alcohol, drugs, but no.
Lay in bed all day and
feel sorry for yourself, but let's get up and go for a walk. Enjoy what nature's got to offer, you know?
Yeah.
It's such a positive, isn't it?
Definitely. You speak to everyone who walks and who's finished it, like it changes them for the rest of their life. I think that's the general consensus of the.
Would you ever go a step further and run it?
No way.
Maybe
not a hope.
Cycle?
No, I can't do the hills on the bike, unfortunately.
I bet you encountered some savage hills, didn't you?
Yeah. It's it was some tough days. Like, it wasn't always nice, you know.
Yeah. I can imagine that part.
Yeah,
but always at the end of every day, I mean, you've got nothing to worry about. All you've got to worry about is where you're going to sleep. And sometimes that didn't matter in the middle of summer.
Did you ever think, today I'm not doing it today, I'm having a day off, or did you just plough through it every day?
So apart from the last time after I got caught with rain and it made me quite ill, I did stop for a while. But normally, because you build up a group of people, you don't want to leave your crew, so to speak. So if they say, right, we're walking to here, then you're like, I've got to go with my crew. You know? I can't leave the crew. So
no, fair dues.
And that's amazing. I mean, like you say, people that you'd never met before, right?
Yeah.
And then
they
become your crew. Like, you're
that's
all on
brilliant.
the same journey.
Yeah. and of course, you're sharing hostels and you sleeping like, you know, as far as me and Chris are from each other. So you know people and, you know, very closely, you know, come the end. It was amazing.
It goes to
experience.
show, doesn't it? No matter who it is, there's always someone out there that you can relate to and talk to.
Definitely.
And
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I'm
It's-
forever chewing people's ears off.
You
on
don't,
the
do you?
building site.
No,
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I was chatting to the brickies actually the other day about it, like mental health as well. And this brickie opened up to me, like saying that his father had committed suicide and like he'd struggled with drink. And I was like, oh, I'm doing a podcast. And like, you just,
Yeah.
everyone's like on a journey, you know? And that's the importance of talking, isn't it?
Yeah, most
You know?
most definitely.
Surprising how many people do suffer or suffer in silence, which we'll come on to later on in the podcast about anxiety, depression, and some stats on that about how many people do struggle. But yeah, it is surprising. Let's talk a bit about anxiety. Who here has
We've all
been-
everyone's had anxiety though, because like
That's
every
it.
time you've got an event, you're always worrying about it, aren't you? Overthinking it. Like
Yeah.
before this, you know, I
Yeah.
was thinking, like, you know, that's anxiety, isn't it?
Yeah.
Worry.
Yeah.
It's
And
how to control it, isn't it? So
You can get it to the point where you're so anxious, like that's what stops you sleeping. You know, when you've
Yeah.
got thoughts running through your head, like you get a knot in your stomach, you know, like it can affect everyone different. Can't it?
yeah, and some people get it. You know, everyone gets something more than others. You know, I know that anxiety has been a huge part in my life of, you know, and it then has created procrastination, you know, doubt, and judgment on myself because I haven't done something, and I'm like, I'm not good enough because
yeah.
I haven't been able to do something. I'm like, I just hide, you know?
Yeah.
It's easier to hide than to expose yourself. And until I know through climbing, you know, until I had the faith to do something, and I wasn't just doing it alone, like say having people around, you know, around me, but having the faith to do something, even when I went to Australia and learned a lot about myself, you know, having anxiety, but then something at some point, for however long it goes on for, I come out of the free state and go, okay, I just have to do it. And that feels so much better. Well, actually, I had my driving test recently and I was so nervous before. Like I was
Yeah.
on the way there on my bike and getting picked up, me, the instructor. I was so nervous. But, you know, I felt fine. You know, unfortunately, I failed. It didn't stop at a stop line. I just went past it actually, and it wasn't. No,
Yeah, you can't do that.
no, I couldn't. No, I went
Lucky it
past
wasn't-
it. Yeah, I went over it.
Lucky you weren't a human being.
But it's like social
yeah.
anxiety as well. Like there'll be situations like if I was coming into this pod and I didn't know any of you guys, I'd be like seriously anxious about it.
Yeah.
Like if I was going on a course and I didn't know anyone, I'd be like anxious about that, worrying about, you know,
Yeah,
what people are going to think of me. You know, do I look all right? Do I sound all right?
Yeah.
What am I doing here? Should I be here? Like, you know, all these thoughts. And it's quite surprising how anxiety affects everyone differently, you know?
Like, have you guys ever, like, with anxiety, like, I've always found if I'm anxious about something, and then in my own mind, sometimes I will create a problem that doesn't really exist just because you're on a roll of the anxiety.
Yeah.
To
And
sort of counteract it.
Yeah, perhaps move your mind from one thing to another, but it's an endless, and this could go on for a day or 2 days,
Yeah.
and then eventually, for me personally, it will disappear. But
I think that's the difference between having anxiety and depression and then
See-
just anxiety.
See,
So
that's the hardest thing as well, like depression as well. Like I remember when I had my breakdown and I just couldn't face like people. I just couldn't I couldn't go to work. I felt that bad. Like I couldn't face like speaking to people and like, I mean, was that anxiety and depression all in one? Like it was a horrible place to be. And like,
it's not like your mind tells you what you're suffering with. It's all so you don't know
like
in your head.
everything's
You're
like
just
bum, bum, bum.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a lot. I think it's a lot to do with your body. You know, the anxiety in your body,
Yeah.
the movement. It's like, well, someone said it's similar to excitement. So, anxiety and excitement. You know, like, and you can switch. They taught me something where I'd be in here and I'd go from anxiety and switch to excitement. You know, it's the same thing, and it's
yeah.
But like you said about anxiety, depression, it's like being anxious about something and then going and doing it anyway, or being anxious about something, not being able to do those things, and then feeling depressed because you couldn't move.
Yeah.
You know, or couldn't. You know,
See,
actually get out of that
with
state.
with depression and that, it's like if you're like one of these outgoing people, like if you're smashing the gym or like you're full of energy, and then you find yourself in a place where you're struggling to get motivated. Like for me, that's like depression. I'm not being the person I want to be. You know, I'm not thriving. Like I'm not hitting the gym. I'm like I haven't got the motivation, and that's like where you're struggling. Like you've got no get up and go. You know, like I found when I was like at my worst point with depression, my weight, like I was at the heaviest I've ever been. Like, I don't know whether I'd turned to food or just because I was being not as active, you know, it was, I don't know, it's just a horrible place to be in. And I don't think it's spoken about enough, really.
Yeah, definitely.
It's noticing, personally, I think it's noticing good anxiety and depression anxiety, as I call it.
Yeah.
So you've got your good anxiety where this morning I got up, I was like, oh, you know, you feel a little knot in your tummy. You're like, oh, I'm a little bit anxious about today, but I know I've done it
So
before.
That's a good way to put it. Good anxiety.
Yeah,
I've
definitely.
never thought of it like
No.
that.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
that's
good
how
comment,
I
that.
try and deal with it. So I know I fit in my head first, right, is this bad anxiety or is this good anxiety? So am I getting anxious like everybody else would because of this situation, or is it just my mind becoming depressed? And so personally for me, the difference is this morning I got up, I felt a little bit anxious, little knot in my stomach, and I thought, oh, you know, I've got this, we've done this before, I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm telling myself all the positives about it, and I'm fine. I feel great about it. Where some situations, my anxiety, personally for me, everybody's going to be different, but I start to feel sick. I don't want to eat. If I feel if I'm going to eat, I'm going to be sick.
Right.
And my blood feels like it's gone cold. Like it's like an instant. I get a shiver, and it feels like I have a wash of blood all through my veins, and it's cold. And that's how my body. And then I start to shut down, and I start panicking about things. And it goes on to what you were saying is, then it goes off the thing that I was getting anxious about, then goes into something else, and then before you know it, it's spiraled out of control, and then I'm anxious about God knows what. Where really I should be focusing on the one thing that I'm anxious about and dealing with it. And then that's the difference between depression anxiety and normal anxiety is your mind can't comprehend something that's going to make you depressed, and that's why you get those anxiety feelings. But that's what I get personally. So it's again, it'll be different for everybody.
That's important, going back to what I was saying about understanding yourself and recognizing these
That's it.
things, you know, so you can cope with them, you know, because it can easily spiral out of control, can't it?
Yeah. There's like you said about it can go from one thing to the other. It's like layers. It's, you know, where it was the first thing and then it's just becomes something else, and then it's, you know.
And some of the things that you create in your mind are like, there's such small things, but your mind creates a kind of scenario around it that makes, and I don't know, sometimes it just, your mind goes a little
Wild.
Yeah, basically wild.
Powerful thing though, the mind.
Yeah.
You know.
And you sit back and you think after, and you think, there's no way that would have happened. Whatever you were thinking that was going to worried about, you think, why would I think that? But at the time, your mind's like, yeah, that's what's happening.
Could have happened, or it's
like,
gonna happen.
We
Or
build up this worry it's like we're saying about today, like, oh yeah, worrying about this, and then like you get and do it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And you're like thinking, yourself, why'd I even worry about that? But
Yeah.
you just subconsciously can't help it, can you?
Yeah, and whether you can override that, whether you can override like, I'm okay, like you said this morning, it's, actually, I've done it before, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And that's where the challenge can be with people either wanting to reach out, needing help, whatever it is because the first time always feels the hardest, because it's something you've never done before.
Yeah.
So then it's like, oh gosh, like, well, what will people think of me, or will I be able to cope with it? Like, it's vulnerable to be able to do that.
Definitely.
But
like I was saying, not enough people like openly talk about it. Like we'll talk about like addiction and things like that, coping mechanisms, and we'll talk about like ADHD, bipolar, autism, PTSD, but we won't specifically, if you're having a chat with someone, you won't go, I was really anxious last night, or I feel really depressed now. It's not something, it's not something we speak about openly, is it?
No.
It's
a strange one, really.
Definitely.
And it, like you say, it's like, I have to have something to be acknowledged, and you can't just be, that's what, as if I felt like it used to be. For myself, is that, I can't just say, like I'm feeling anxious about this, and because either your family or whatever else, life's too busy.
Yeah.
So it's like, you just carry on with things. It's like, I'll take something or do whatever just to carry on. But this is why, like, us having the conversations that we've had over the years, to be able to go, gosh, like I'm feeling anxious about it, and be heard for it.
I think also sometimes, like, talking about reaching out for help, perhaps like people feel they can't ask because they're worried about putting off, he's got this problem or this problem, so I can't talk to them about my problems, so you keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't, but I think it's important, if you're feeling these feelings, you have to reach out.
If you don't reach out, it can escalate, and like that's where it can become worse. It just builds up. Like we were talking in the last podcast, weren't we? Like a bottle.
Yeah.
You just let things build up, and then like all of a sudden you take the lid off, it's just going to explode. You know?
Yeah. Open it slowly.
Yeah.
And release that stress and tension slowly. You can open the bottle without it coming out. You open it straight away, then you're going to get and then that's when it comes into depression. Then it's your anxiety's gone, and then you're into depression. Then then that's when you don't want to talk to people, you don't want to see any people, you don't want to do anything. Everything's a challenge for me.
Like, have you guys ever found, like, with depression, where you go to bed of an evening and in the morning you just want to sleep? You don't want to. You wake up and you think, I don't want to get up because then I've got to face how I'm going to feel for the rest of the day. I just want to sleep till 10, 11, and I think that for me was when I realised, like, that depression was real and it had kind of set in. That you didn't want to wake up.
Or you got the problem of not being able to sleep.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then because you're that depressed and you can't sleep, then you're getting more agitated, anxious, and like you just, it's a vicious circle then.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible place to be in.
I guess, like, for everyone's mind is kind of different, isn't it? So everyone will experience different kinds of depression and different kinds of anxiety, but they're all very closely linked, kind of thing.
And I like the way you say good anxiety and bad anxiety. It's like fear, for instance.
Yeah.
Like some people say that's a bad anxiety, but like if I class it with like adrenaline, like the fear of doing something, but like being an adrenaline junkie, like I was talking earlier about my quad bike, just flying off these jumps and like yeah, that's crazy behavior, but like the buzz, the adrenaline, and that, you know,
again, it's like a fix within itself.
Yeah.
You know,
Whereas you'll have someone else that will not even get on the bike,
yeah,
won't even touch it, you know, and it's so different, isn't it?
Yeah,
you got to find what suits you.
yeah,
Like you saying about not wanting to get up and meet the world, where I was opposite. I struggled to sleep, and when I did wake up, you have that, and I think everybody gets that split sort of 2-3 seconds where you feel so good when you wake up, and then your brain kicks in and you're like, oh. But for me, it was like, I need to get out of bed. I can't lay in bed, but I don't want to see anybody. But the more I laid in bed, the more my depression got worse, and I was thinking things. I needed to keep my mind active. I mean, at the time, I couldn't concentrate on films, talking, but for me, it was pacing the house. I would just walk around my house and, you know, I'd walk up, look out my window, and I'd walk back, and I'd touch stuff, I'd move stuff just to keep my mind active.
yeah,
So for me, it was shutting out the world and not wanting to see anybody. But at the same time, I needed to be active, because if I wasn't, I'd think more and I'd think more. Where there are a lot of people where they just go to bed and they want to sleep, and they want to sleep the world away. They want to shut it out, because obviously when you're asleep, you're shutting it out. So I think that's a good point to make. You know, everybody's so different, so different.
definitely. We all deal with things differently.
Yeah,
And it's like, I remember, and going back to what we were talking about, walking, I remember at my lowest point, like walking for me was a lifesaver, like just getting out, you know, seeing, like we're lucky to live in a beautiful area of the country, you know, be by the seaside, that fresh air, just being with myself and my thoughts was so important for my recovery when I was in a bad place. And, you know, like you say, everyone deals with things differently, don't they?
Did any of you find, like with your, I mean, personally, not for me, but like anger, did you find yourself getting very angry and sort of, I was quite snappy. So when I was sort of, my anxiety kicked in, or I was worrying about something, I'd be a little bit snappy towards people because I wanted to shut that conversation down. But I find that anger can be quite a big...
Yeah, see, like, I find, like, talking about being snappy, I find, like, if I've had a busy day and I'm tired, that's probably where my mood had changed, where I'd be potentially snappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just want to sort of go to sleep, don't you?
Yeah.
But it's hard when you got a busy life, like you're coming home with the kids, like, you'll have to, and you're trying your best to be the best version of you, but like sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
really hard.
I found that at times that when I'm anxious, then anger can come out.
Yeah.
Get snappy. Like, yeah, just trying to be a support to myself and to be able to go, like, it's okay, it's all right. You know, it's kind of like being a friend to myself. It's like you said about the bottle. And I would just suppress because I wasn't confident enough to speak. And I wasn't able to say what I needed to. So then I was always seen as like the nice guy and the good guy and like everything else. And the one time I would be upset or angry, someone would say like, oh, like, what's wrong with you? And it's like as if I couldn't be it.
Yeah,
you know?
that's it.
Yeah.
'Cause they're not
Yeah,
used to
definitely.
seeing you like that, I guess,
Yeah.
and you're not, yeah.
So I had to really create,
A lot, like, my family, my wife and stuff, she's on it. She's spot on. She knows, you know, if I'm snappy at her, majority of the time, if my dinner's cold or... No, I'm not joking. I'm joking.
no, it's not.
She knows if I snap, then she knows that either I'm anxious or something's worrying me. Especially if it just comes out of the blue and I'm a little bit snappy. She's really good at knowing that, you know, she'll walk away from the situation or whatever, and then she'll come back and be like, "Are you okay? What was that about?" And I'll say, "Oh, actually, sorry, it was this or it was this." So I think it's good to speak to people about it, to allow them to be able to see those changes in you, to be able to help you with those changes. So if you, like you said, if you're suppressing them and you're not saying to anybody, when they do occur, you find people take it wrong or take it badly, where if you didn't suppress them and you sort of said, look, you know, I'm quite anxious at the moment. I can get a little bit snappy sometimes, so I do apologise, and just letting people know that if you're in that environment and you're with somebody or you're at work, you can just say, look, guys, I'm not feeling very well. I'm not feeling great. I apologise now if I'm a little bit snappy. I don't mean it. So I think it is good to release that, and there'll be a lot of people probably watching that will be suppressing it, like you said, because they feel a burden or they feel like they can't say.
And again, what you said before with anxiety is that there is healthy anger and there is healthy and unhealthy anger. So it's where it's, again.
Do you guys ever get, like, when you wake up, like, I don't know, this probably comes back to understanding, but I can wake up some days and I just think, today's not going to be a good day. Regardless of what I do, like, I can just feel it, my mood, and I just think, like, let's just get today out of the way and let's go again tomorrow.
And reset.
You know, but it's, and that's, again, it's important to, because you could have, like, 2 bad days, 3 bad days, and then, you know, like, having that understanding is so important, isn't it?
I think it's like, if you're having a bad episode of depression or anxiety, like, for me personally, I always had the thing in the back of my head that would tell me eventually that you will pull through. A slight little bit of positivity would tell me eventually.
No storm lasts forever, as they say.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes you're in a hole and you think, am I going to get out? But I guess sometimes you just have to hold on to that. Things will get better, and they always do, you know.
Yeah.
And
at the time, they won't seem it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you said, weathering that storm, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like saying this. I say to a lot of people, it's like a car journey. So you've got your start, and then you've got your destination. What happens in between that journey is not a big issue. You might break down, or you're not going as fast as you wanted to, or you might stop for a coffee. But at the end of the day, you're still going to get to that destination. It's just trying to deal with that drive in between.
And this is what's important for people, and a reason why we're doing this. Like, there'll be people we speak to, and they'll be at a point where they're feeling they're not coming out of this storm. But I guarantee you, every storm will finish. You know, they don't last forever. You just got to ride the waves, and it's horrible when you're in that position for people to understand it as well, because, like, you just don't see no.
Well, you know yourself, you don't see, like, when I'm depressed or I'm feeling, I think, oh, this is not going to end. This ain't going to end. It's going to be here all the time. So it's very hard to see that, but it is right. You know, you do come out, as you boys know, the last 3 weeks, I'm feeling better now, but the last 3 weeks, I felt absolutely rubbish. Like, I woke up one morning and I felt pretty low. And then I wasn't eating as much. I'd sort of have one meal through the day, and sometimes nothing. And I just felt crap, you know, just a bit emotional at times. But there was no reason. I couldn't pinpoint a reason why. But and it's what I say to people, you know, if you've got anxiety or depression, it's not, and you're on medication, you're feeling good, it's always going to be there. But it's just the way you deal with that. Yeah. You know, it's not the medication that I'm on. It's not going to fix the problem. It's not. It just helps with the problem. It's how you feel inside of how you're going to deal with it. And it is a scary thing to think about. But in the moment, it is so difficult to try and tell yourself when you're that low that things are going to be okay. And that's why it's good for us to say and to tell people, you know, watching this, that things will be okay, and ride the wave, and you will come out.
It's like any storm, isn't it? Like a storm, you know, it could go for days, or it could be like a day or whatever, you know, but it does pass, you know, and but it's the hard thing, like you say, when you're in it, you just want it to end.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely.
But that's the important thing, remembering it will pass.
Have you ever found, like, obviously, Seichi, in your relationship, so when you're having a bad episode, do you feel guilty on your partner because of the way you feel? Does kind of guilt come out? Does it come into it?
Yeah. At the time, I think depending on how low you are, when I was at my lowest years and years ago, I couldn't care less. Like I was in my own world. I wasn't, for me, I was not even on this planet. I couldn't care less about anything, about my wife, my kids, my friends. I just didn't care. Life was done for me. But now that I've got a handle on it and I feel like I can cope more, like guilt is 100%, like always there. I feel it every day, all day. And it's just something that I've come to sort of live with and respect. But in the same respect that I feel like I can also give that as well. So I know if someone's having a bad day or, the wife's had a bad day at work, I can take some of that guilt off of her and be like, look, I've been there. I've dealt with that.
Yeah. Turning it into a positive.
Into a positive, yeah. And I'll always apologise to her and I'll say, like, and she'll always say, oh, don't be stupid. I'm here. We're married. That's what I'm here for. Death do us part, goodness, fitness and health and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, guilt is hugely there. And even for my friends and my family, I feel like a letdown, I feel, especially for my children, I feel like I let them down. And so I don't let them see me like that or involve them much, especially at their age, because I don't want that burden on them and I don't want them to have those feelings.
For you saying that, you shouldn't have to be like that.
No, 100%,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
100%. This was something I was going to go into. Like the man's meant to be like this strong, like, and we're not allowed to show, but it's good to show your emotions.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we're teaching our kids, if we're showing emotions, they're going to see that and they're going to get the understanding that it's okay to show their emotions. And that's, I think, where times are changing, because you could go into the subject of like suicide and that, with guys not being able to show their emotions and bottling it up. It's important to get it out there and to show, be vulnerable in front of your families. They're the ones who love you.
Yeah. I think suicide's quite a big thing to touch on, because especially since lockdown, I know that the figures went through the roof, basically. Yeah. I mean, even in the local area, I was hearing about it quite commonly. So it is a thing, and it does happen.
Hugely, yes. So I got some stats on it that saying that over the course of someone's lifetime, like 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts. Now that's insane. 1 in 5 people. Yeah. That's like
extremely hard.
That's us. Well, we're obviously the gorgeous guy doing the podcast, as I mentioned last time. That's 5 of us. So one of us in this room has had suicidal thoughts. Now that's crazy. You think there's 8.5 billion people in this world. Yeah. 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts.
Just to say, like, honestly, like I have had it a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've never gone to the point of going, I'm going to do something. But I have had points where, I've had the thoughts of being like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I was the same.
I don't think I've ever had that thought.
Haven't you? Yeah.
I don't know.
I only had that at my lowest.
Everyone's different, though, isn't they? We all deal with
my true lowest was, it's exhausting, isn't it? It's absolutely exhausting going through mental health.
Again, this is just what someone told me personally, is like, it's having an option. When you can't find an option, it's having an option,
But this is like going back to like what we were saying about like being vulnerable at home. Like, something I've struggled with in the past is showing my emotions.
Yeah.
Like, again, going back to what we were saying about you got to be strong. Like, I just remember going to family funerals and like, I'd just be numb. Like, not really showing any emotion. And I think like losing my nan and granddad, who were really close to me, really affected me, to be honest. And that was probably contributed to my downward spiral. And like, with understanding, I've sort of got to the point now where it's good to show emotion. Like I said to you guys the other day, like when I lost my dog, like, I have never cried so much in my life. Like, obviously at the time I needed to get it out,
Yeah.
you know, and like it kind of felt good to be able to have that cry, to get it out rather than lock it up. And that's what's important, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I don't think I would have been able to do that, and then I'd be beating myself up about it, you know. And that's the importance of showing emotions, you know.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think it was also like 1 in 14 people self-harm. So obviously you've got suicide, which is obviously on the heavier side. But yeah, 1 in 14 people actually self-harm. So, which go for a lot of people deal with anxiety and depression, with pain. I knew somebody that used to self-harm because they sort of enjoyed it. They enjoyed that pain. They enjoyed feeling the pain. It wasn't self-harming because they wanted to end their life. They were doing it because they liked the feeling of the pain. They felt that they've given people, comes back to you saying about guilt. They felt that they had put guilt on so many people that the only way to deal with that was to cut themselves.
Do you think perhaps the mental pain they was feeling at the time was so severe they perhaps preferred physical pain as opposed to the mental pain, like
It's weird to talk about
kind of a
pain
release
in terms of like I use tattoos as like a therapy.
Yeah.
Like some people, when I say that to some people, they're like, but like I generally used to, well, like a lot of the tattoos I've got from like the last, I don't know, 5 years. But when I'm sat in that chair, I've got nothing to worry about, you know, and like, even though it's painful having a tattoo, I get, you know, it's like
an enjoying pain, isn't it?
It's a
Yeah.
safe place,
It's
and I'm getting a bit of art at the same time.
Yeah, it's the same as me. It's painful, but I enjoy it. It's like a
But everyone's got different pain thresholds.
yeah,
haven't they?
100%.
Some people like can't tolerate them. Some, you know,
I've never had a tattoo.
no.
this afternoon.
Yeah,
We're going.
go.
Yeah.
Amazing minds.
I'll do it.
Rob. But yeah, climbing's my thing, you know. That's what, you know, cutting up the hands and the skin, you know. But yeah, it is. Yeah.
And sort of just dipping back to suicide, and I was saying that 1 in 5 people have those thoughts of suicide. And I think the stats were 1 in 15 people actually attempt suicide.
Wow,
Which
that's higher.
It's just crazy.
That's the importance. So, like for us here talking, I mean, you got to be in a really low place to go. You know,
Yeah, super low.
Well, it's an area that has been quite prominent recently. It was about a month or so ago that it was a dear friend that, you know, some of us know that David Drake, it was a 10-year remembrance for he took his own life. And we had a group of us that got together, and my friend put a film on the TV and videos of him and his life, and then his mum brought along some of like he would collect lots of different things, but said about his shoes, he had more shoes than a woman. You know, like, and loads of trainers, loved his trainers, but also
worse than me.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll have to count up and see how many there are.
I'm not that bad anymore.
No, that's down to 500. But he had model cars, so she gave some, like she had them there, and it was just a really beautiful thing to go to, because, you know, I think I had some avoidance with remembering it, and it's painful when, you know, someone you know has gone through something where, even if they've talked to people, you know, they just can't see a way out of it. But yeah, just to just to see that, and there's more, but just to see the effect that it had on his mum and others, and grateful for life. She goes out walking a lot, actually, and just the way she is with community and people, it's as if
it's everyone you leave behind, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the effects it has on them.
The thing is, I think back then I remember it. I used to grow up and hang around with him a lot, and I remember the day vivid, like how it was done and how he done, which obviously I won't get into, but he in his own mind, from the letter that he left, and again, not going into too much detail because it's not my story to tell, but he was adamant that this was it. This was his time, and he come to terms with it. He was sort of happy with it. He come to terms with his own self that this is what he wanted to do. Now, thinking back, there wasn't a lot of help out there. Nobody spoke about it.
That's the importance. Like, you kind of probably wish that this was
100%, because I can guarantee you, I don't think he would have got to that stage.
Because it's obviously so final. It's
to get to that stage of ending your own life.
That split second where there's no going back from that.
That's it.
And had he been able to hang on, the next week could have been a different story.
Change, and like you were saying with yourself, you got to that point where you were just like, if I don't change, then I could not be here anymore. Do you know what I mean? And to be in that headspace where he was sort of happy, but he was content with doing that, just goes to show that he'd got to the point where there wasn't enough help, there wasn't anything more out there for him to do, and that's why we're doing this podcast is to stop that, to show that there are things out there are people to support you, there are Mike's living proof of
this was a thing you said as well, like about even if there is help out there, you still need to want to help yourself. You can get all the advice in the world, but unless you want to do it yourself, it isn't going to matter.
And like you said, he planned it, he didn't want to, and just set in his mind. And I'm really grateful. Like I say, it's one of those things. It's not something you want to happen, and I'm just, like I say, to see we have his mum come over to every single birthday gathering. We all get together, and it's beautiful. And just like the way that she's embraced life after, because you can go either way. How she's embraced life, I mean, it's just wonderful to see.
Again, I was reading some stats about it, and according to the .gov website, from August 2023 to October 24, there was 5,464 deaths that were suspected suicide, which is just outrageous. Like that is, it shouldn't be happening. It doesn't need to happen, and unfortunately, it's higher in men. So 74.4% of those suicides were men. Which obviously leaves 25.6% were female. And just because we're a bunch of guys talking about it and we want to get the guys out there talking and the stuff, there's going to be a lot of females watching this, or whatever gender you are going to be watching this. This is for everybody. You don't have to get to that stage. There is help, and please sort of get that help.
Just reach out to someone.
That's it. It's just
like we always say, our inbox is open. Only takes a message. And going back to what we said on the first podcast, like if I see someone struggling on Facebook, I will message them. And I've done it umpteen times. And
I've had messages from yourselves, and and it helps you just to know that someone, even if you don't know that person that well, just someone cares, and it's a nice.
You're not alone.
You're not alone, exactly.
That's
that's the important thing.
And that can be the scariest thing sometimes. Even if in your head, in the back of your head, you're not alone. in the front of your head, you still feel alone, you know.
Yeah.
So just to have a bit of support is lovely, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah, and I don't, I don't. There's just one more thing I want to say on it as well, because it's because of that, going to that, like afterwards, I went up to Wales, had a really nice time away afterwards. Just it was like sadness, and then to experience, and then on the Monday morning, unfortunately, I had another friend that had taken his life a few years ago, a close friend from school, and so I just messaged his brother to say, hey, I've just been to Remembrance and I was thinking of Ross. And he messaged back instantly, say, hey, and he invited me to what would have been his 40th it's in August. And it hit me, because I was just like he's, he has 2 kids. He had 2 kids, and it made me think, that what if he had the opportunity to talk? You never know. But this is why this is so relevant and so important, because of that. That what if I'd spoke? It's So just to be able to talk about the stuff, it's like
definitely.
No, definitely.
Got the better review about you and your journey. Did you ever? Are you an emotional guy, or have you ever been an emotional guy, or did it make you an emotional guy?
As in my life journey, or
so like your journey from sort of, again, from your addiction to your recovery. Did you find that you were breaking down, or you would have a cry and you'd feel better, or sort of the sadness of it? How did it?
I had some seriously dark days, not all the time, Sometimes you're up here and then you're down here, and then you go into a spree of alcohol abuse or drug abuse, and then you can be at the bottom for a week, but you come back out. And I think for me, like at my lowest, I remember another good friend basically coming round to my flat. Someone who basically, informed him, you got to go and get him. He's not good. And I was just basically, I couldn't get out. I was crying in tears.
Yeah.
And he basically came and he picked me up. He took me out of my flat. Like I needed to see people, basically. And he took me round my mum's. Lucky mum's there for you.
That's it.
And I think I ended up staying there for a couple of days just to bring myself back to kind of normality. But I mean, for me personally, if you live at the top, then you have to come down to the bottom. And like for me in my life, it's never been in the middle. I'm either hyper, or I'm at the bottom.
I don't think anyone could honestly say that they're in the middle, though, because life's such a roller coaster.
Yeah, definitely.
You've got so many ups and downs. Like, there's so many situations which are put to us, It is just a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Well, there's a point of living between the edges, like where you're right at the edge of like the low and the high, and then it's actually go in between, There's the point of no return, or the point of when you get the high.
But I think also, like for the times that you are sad, it makes the happier times better.
I think you appreciate it more.
Yeah,
like I appreciate the little things in life more now.
Yeah,
definitely.
Which is important, because I think the little things are forgot about sometimes, aren't they? Just before we come here, well, not just before, but last night, my boy doing some colouring, my youngest, and he made me this card, and he's doing his phonics and stuff at school. He's written there, "To Dad, you're the best dad in the world. I love you." And then he said to me after he gave me that card, I was, "Oh, thanks, mate." He's like, "You take that tomorrow when you go and do your recording. Take it with you, and that'll make you happy." And it's just little things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, and I got it with me. And it's in the car, but I brought but I brought it because and it's just those little things where before I would have been sort of like, "Oh, thanks, mate. Oh yeah, I will do." put it on the side and you sort of forget about it. But it's so important to latch on to those happy times and those happy moments, because I think personally for me, that's what keeps me going, is those tiny little, even.
This is what I was saying on the way over here as well, about the positivity, like from a group. Like if you're feeling a little bit down and there's a bit of positivity in the group, that can help bring you up.
100%. Like I said, a few weeks ago when I weren't feeling great, you boys all chipped in and we sort of kept in contact, messaging and stuff. And it was those little moments where you just sort of think, I have got people there, and I have got people, thinking about me and thinking, and that just gives you that little boost of.
And that can be the hardest thing as well, going back to what we were saying about people not reaching out. So if you haven't got that support network, it is actually important to reach out, because like we're saying, that bit of positivity can rub off.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
I can't, thinking back to that conversation, I can't believe we was on the phone for an hour and 43 minutes. I was like, that's probably the longest I've ever been on the phone in my life.
Yeah, so just a bit of context for everybody. We before this podcast, and sort of me, Paul and Si sort of said we bring somebody on that's, been through the ringer, and not literally.
What kind of podcast?
I'm not judging. And so we said, it'd be a great idea. So we decided to do a FaceTime and get us, all four of us, on FaceTime. And so we done that, and we just chatted. And like you said, an hour and 40 odd minutes had gone by, and we're sort of like, oh, bloody hell, was that?
Thank God we've done that before the podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So again, it's just, I think you when you get in that moment and you're just chatting and you're telling your story and you're just having a general chat about what you've been up to and what you've been doing, time does fly. And after, it's not until you sort of think about it and you think, actually, that was really good. I enjoyed that and got a few things off my chest, and it does drop your anxiety a little bit as well. And especially for you, not, thinking, oh, God, I've got this podcast coming up and you're worried about it. And, just hearing people saying, like, don't sweat, it'll be fine. We'll just go on, we'll chat. It just lowers your anxiety a bit more. So it's so good to connect, really connect with people.
And I'm sure, like, obviously the people who do watch this can relate to all of us in many different ways,
Yeah.
That's why it's important to get four of us at different lives, different things. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's you and your troubles and your addictions and your recovery, and mine anxiety, depression, and yours being a sensitive guy and how you've dealt with that, and your ADHD. And you're
just bouncing off the wall.
I've
sat here calm today.
Yeah, I can say
I've been pretty good, I think.
I think you've.
But like you going on about sadness, like we talk about happiness as well, like, and the joys of happiness.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
So the feeling of happiness, like those little things.
Yeah,
like you got to treasure that, haven't you?
100%. Like that. That's what keeps me on track. I've like I said, my lowest points, I've had thoughts like I'm tired, I'm knackered mentally, physically, I'm done in, I can't, I'm a burden on everybody, I'm bringing everybody else down, I'm done, I've had enough, I don't want to be here anymore. And that was my mindset. But thinking back now, and I think, I'm so glad that I never got to that point. And I went and got help. I spoke to the doctor, I had friends and family, and and I had that network. And if it's important to say, like you saying, some people don't have that network, and it's so important to find that network or reach out, because those happy moments are the moments that pulled me through it personally.
Yeah.
If it weren't for my kids, I always said that I probably wouldn't be here. Do you know what I mean? I just they pulled me through, and that's why I cherish those little moments now. Those.
Well, that's it. You got to hold on to them as well.
Yeah, and in the intertwine of happiness and sadness, and being a happy guy, I felt bad being a sad guy as such,
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I really had to learn how to embrace, I'm feeling sad, or say that I'm sad, whether it's to myself or whether it is to someone else. Actually, I'm feeling really sad about this. And sometimes you don't need to say anything more. Sometimes it is literally, I'm feeling quite sad, actually.
But it's important at recognising it.
Yeah. And actually, then allowing it, that gives me the opportunity to be okay. Like then I can come back to joy and come back to happiness, come back to those things where it's like it's not denying any emotion.
No.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's the importance.
Yeah.
And I guess like that's what's brought us here, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, keep going back to it, understanding and whatnot.
And in the same respect of emotion, like with your walking, you know, it takes one step, you know,
Yeah.
and then another,
Yeah.
and
That's
then
it.
another.
Yeah.
So in the
Rome
motion,
wasn't built in a day.
Yeah,
You can't
this is-
run before you can walk.
Yeah.
Iron am I?
I don't even know why people run anyway, to be fair.
yeah.
The time I run, it's from the police. So or dinner time.
But yeah, it's knowing, like, is it one word or is it one action?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but
But the important thing is it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
100%.
And I think everyone in their life will feel some sort of, you know, mental problem or some kind of struggle. I'm sure everyone will go through.
Yeah,
at once.
100%.
There's
I
no
mean, the
way you
stats-
can
Yeah.
The
scrape
stats
through.
show it. Do you know what I mean? It's
You can't scrape through life and not get any problems. I don't think
No.
so.
yeah, the strongest person, whoever that might be, might.
He's
we'll
certainly
see.
ain't in here.
I'd love
Yeah.
to meet them.
Yeah.
I don't think they exist.
It sounds like your legs are quite strong.
Yeah, they would be. Yeah.
You know, like even the person that has, you know, a fat person that you would just see as like got it all together or whatever else, you know, they still, like, you still get hit.
Yeah.
Like whenever it is in life, you know, you just, you get hit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't, you know, like they say, to judge a book by the cover. You know, you see these people, when you see people on social media, majority of the time, social media is made for happiness. Do you know what I mean? It's like you don't see people's bad days. You don't see people's bad. Sometimes you do, but it's all happy. It's all, oh, look at that. They've gone out here and they've gone on holiday. They've done this. They've done that. It always seems better than your own life.
Yeah.
But it's sitting back and looking at your own life and being happy about what you have and what you don't have.
In between.
Yeah,
you know?
that's it. You know,
It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
no, that exactly that. And like for me, it's my happy place is my family, my kids, and my wife. What's your happy place?
Yeah, same. My
Same.
family.
What about you? What's your happy?
In climbing, or actually, again, I do meditation. So I absolutely love coffee. It's probably my addiction. It is the one
I
thing.
do.
The art you put
Do.
off on them is class.
Oh yeah, your coffee art.
Yeah, it's actually, and that's it. You know, again, perfectionist to show, or that was one thing I used to be like, it has to be perfect. It has to
I
be
remember
right.
that competition you entered when you were working with Sammy that time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
it's a good way of expressing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what, creativity can come in any form, and I never knew through doing that I would
Making pictures on top of coffee, do you know? But no, yeah. But then me receiving that, I'd be like, oh, it's banging. That is. I love that.
You
Like,
wouldn't want to drink it. Would
no,
you?
that's it. Yeah. It's like,
That's what I get a lot. I love to see. I love to create something. You know, like the Exeter Chiefs when they used to come into Artigiano. I worked there. I made a chief on top of the coffee.
awesome.
Nice.
And yeah, maybe get a picture up or something. I don't know at some point.
Yeah.
But it's I did that, and then they all wanted it.
They didn't get their coffee for 2 hours.
Yeah. But it was, then it was a joy actually to, my one thing is to create something. Like, so we'll go through where it looks like a piece of shit. Yeah. And actually, each one, let's say you only see the finished design.
Yeah.
You don't see the journey of where it
That's
so
it.
it
Yeah.
looks a bit warped. But I have wanted to create that skill to then someone comes in and they go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're happy, you're making somebody else happy and getting that buzz.
That little bit of joy, if I can give something back to someone within
Definitely.
the community or where I'm in, it's like, oh, wow, I want to make it the best that I
Yeah.
can possibly do.
Yeah.
That's
so then
all it
someone
takes.
carries that away.
That's all it
You know?
takes.
Yeah.
People say, you could walk past some stranger and they're, oh, good morning. that one little gesture could change that person's
Day.
day just by saying good morning.
Definitely.
So that's why it's always good to sort of take that positivity away. What about you? What's your go-to happiness? What's the thing that you cling on to?
For me, like at this moment in time is obviously now, because I live where I live, I've got a good tenant in my flat in Teignmouth. Now, like, I can go travelling tomorrow.
Like
Providing I've got a few quid in the bank, I can go tomorrow, and I just love the sense of freedom, you know?
Yeah, so your happiness is go-to,
It's
go
just,
away.
just my freedom.
Yeah,
I
nice.
love it. I feel like a new man with
free
this.
spirit.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
worries.
Yeah, that's it. It's
and
just...
that is, like, you touching on that is perfect, because it is finding that thing that creates freedom for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's that being able to go through whatever to go, this is my thing, you know.
Yeah, something to always go back to.
Yeah.
I'll safely say, for me, like personally, like kind of on top of the world at the moment. Life's pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
that's good. That's a good place
like,
to be.
you can come out of it, you
And
know.
like,
So
it shows the way you like come on and talk today, you know, and thank you for coming on and sharing. your
thank you
story.
for having me.
No, we appreciate
I
it.
enjoyed
It's
it.
been
Been a good.
Yeah.
I know
Good
it'd be
morning.
good,
Yeah.
and it's it's going to be relatable to so many people. I think it's
Well, you
so appreciate that.
you've just spoken openly and honestly and said whatever you've needed to say without any, you know, like just not even thinking about it, just saying it. So
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, lads.
no,
Cheers.
Just more people need to do it. That's it. That's
Definitely.
what we need
That's
to.
it.
Yeah.
Roll on the next one.
Yeah, look forward to it.
and obviously if people have enjoyed it, you know, we've got that GoFundMe still going, haven't we?
Yeah, the GoFundMe's still up. So if you go to our socials, you'll find a link on there for the GoFundMe. You know, every little helps. We've been quite lucky with, you know, we've had quite a bit of support with the GoFundMe. And also we had Jackson's Motors sponsor us a huge chunk for today to go towards recording today. And we have got a sponsor for our next pod as well, which is really good. But yeah, every little helps, and we can keep bringing you these pods and get other guests on and
Keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and as we found through your journey with the walking and the community that you find, and that inspiration for you and others, and all the things that we have, the community, it's creating the community. Like, having communities is so important.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. On that note, thank you everyone.